Good morning, beautiful and lovely people. Good morning. On here bright and early today. Alright, you guys, so finally going to move from the Aquarian Gospel portion of this text by the noble prophet Drew Ali, and we are going to get into his teachings, his specific teachings. So before we do, I did do a little search, something to keep in mind while reading these teachings, okay? The Moorish Holy Temple of Science, or the Moorish Temple of Science, is still very much an active church as of today, okay? I looked up some little portion of this text, and what came up was a Facebook page, okay? I'm looking at here the Moorish Temple of Science of America, Inc., okay, Incorporated, and they're headquartered in Maryland, but these temples exist all over the world. They're very active, all right? I did like this page. They post some of their services, and they also post like a girl talk chat and group, which I thought was very interesting. I started listening to a portion last night. So very cool to know that this noble prophet actually had forerun a complete bunch of churches, okay, complete bunch of temples, holy temples, that are still practicing today. It's been well over 100 years, and these are still active based on these teachings precisely, okay? So very, very awesome, I think, to see that today. I didn't plan to stumble upon it, but I did, and I'm very glad to see it. So that's great. And something to keep in mind too, why we have all these different religions and why do we have all these different sects, right? This is considered a sect of Islam, exactly. We talked about it a little bit. I think I posted a video on that precisely. But why do we have these religions, and why do we have all these different sects, and why are they important? So the revelation that I've come reading these texts today, and if we find them still relevant to us today, like we are experiencing some of these same issues, we are experiencing some of these same thoughts, right, that we need answers to, that we have questions about, then we still have a need for religion, and we still have a need for the teachings, okay? It's not because of these teachings we are still experiencing all the same. It's because we happen to be experiencing some of these same issues and these same problems and these same questions that these teachings provide answers or guidance towards. So as long as we still continue to have these issues or these problems or these temptations, then these teachings from these religions and these holy people will still be relevant to us today. So that's why the Bible is often still relevant to us today. The Koran, right, is still relevant to us today as we experience these answers or these questions that we have to these big problems, right? Or we have these big curiosities that need some sort of supplement, okay? So as long as we still have these big questions, as long as we still run into certain issues, these teachings will still be relevant, and the faith will still exist to go ahead and keep us strong and to keep us motivated. So without further ado, we're going to get into this. This next section here is titled and authored to young men, okay? It says Holy Instructions and Warnings for Young Men. And it's a very short section, and even the first few lines, right, the author here uses the word harlot. So us women might kind of, roll our eyes and think that this doesn't apply to us, and it's like, oh, this was written in 1926. Why should we be listening to this young man's view of these harlots, right, of today? But even if you're a woman watching, pay close attention, because we all have duality inside of us. And while this might be directed to the audience of a young man and warnings and instructions for young men, we can fall into these traps as well as women, believe it or not. I'll just put in a little excerpt here. I fall guilty all the time because I'm trying to think, how does this apply to me? Am I, in this case, the harlot? Should I read it like that? No, not necessarily, but, I exist on the same social media that you all exist, okay? And I talked about this many a times. I see the celebrities, right? I try not to open that video of Kylie and Kendall Jenner, as lovely as they are, and as much as I do, you know, genuinely would like to support them. I try not to waste and spend my time, you know, fantasizing or even paying the attention to, right, these young stars and these young celebrities and these young models, because that forms, whether it is on purpose or whether it's conscious or unconscious, it forms an opinion no matter what. Even if you're not commenting or liking, or, you know, even if you have nothing to say in that mind, that little opinion is being kindled, and that opinion does finally make its way over to those young women somehow. So it's best just, you know, to go ahead and stay away and to try not to expose yourself. I know we see our makeup videos, our makeup tutorials, as entertaining as they are. You know, some of them can be a little bit more ridiculous, but again, it allows you to form that initial opinion that somehow that ether will make its way over to those young women who made it. And, you know, not that the opinion might be bad or good and might help or not, but, you know, we can't help but form judgments, and those videos are created for us to form judgments, right? Same with, like, the plastic surgery videos, right? We see the before and after transformations, and they're very tempting to watch. You want to see this amazing transformation take place. And I'm not saying all these things are inherently bad. It's just our own emotions and our own well-being that we should look after, okay? So the first little warning here can be applied to men, right? And can be applied to the things that we see online that maybe we didn't want to see, that we weren't set up to see, or maybe, you know, the very explicit things that we should never be watching online as well. But sometimes they're just exposed to us in our younger years, of course. But definitely just keep these in mind as we read through this first part, and then, you know, we get to some very real truth here towards the end. So try not to, like, roll your eyes and turn away from this discussion of the harlots, because we will be talking about this in Proverbs as well. Solomon is actually talking quite well to this excerpt here, and the passages are communicating with each other, and we can see that, and we can witness that as we get into Proverbs. So let me just close the door because it's freezing once again. You're gonna go outside or in? Go out. You can go outside. So let us begin in the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. Holy instructions and warnings for all young men, or the duality within us women. It says, beware, young men, beware of all the allurements of wantonness. Let not the harlot tempt thee to excess in her delights. The madness of desire shall defeat its own pursuits. From the blindness of rage thou shalt rush upon destruction. Therefore give up not thy heart to her sweet enticements, neither suffer thy soul to be enslaved by her enchanting delusions. The foundation of health, which must supply the stream of pleasure, shall be quickly dried up, and every spring of joy shall be exhausted. In the prime of thy old age, in the prime of thy life, old age shall overtake thee. The sun shall decline in the morning of thy days. But when virtues and modesty enlighten her charms, the lustre of a beautiful woman is brighter than the stars of heaven, and the influence of her power is in its vein. It is in vain to resist. The whiteness of her bosom transcendeth the lily. Her smile is more delicious than a golden garden of roses. The innocence of her eyes is like that of the turtle. Simplicity and truth dwell within her heart. The kisses of her mouth are sweeter than honey. The perfumes of Arabia breathe from her lips. Shut not thy bosom to the tenderness of love. The purity of its flame shall ennoble thy heart, and soften it to receive the fairest impressions. This, of course, the Holy Koran of the Moorish Holy Temple of Science, divinely prepared by the noble prophet Drew Ali. Alright, so you see how this takes a turn. Prophet Drew Ali, is not, peace be upon him, is not doing the total, right, push away of, all harlots, right, all women. No, he's saying love, true love, is a beautiful thing, and it should be sought out. And you can tell when it's true love by these things, right, by the feelings that you receive, and by the way that it is perceived to you. It should fill you up with goodness instead of these other emotions or these other judgments that we might have. So true love is a beautiful thing, and we shouldn't close ourselves off to true love. We should not guard ourselves, right, from all, inklings of intimacy, right? So definitely open yourself up to true love, but, try to guard yourself at least from the temptations, right, the surface level things that we were talking about, and explains what we were talking about pretty plainly here. I shouldn't say plainly, but it explains what we were talking about in a very poetic and beautiful way here. Really makes you think. Something that I want you to hold on to before we get to Proverbs is this notation here of the fountain of health, which must supply the stream of pleasure. Okay, so there's this metaphor, I guess you can say, of the fountain of health, right? It's thought of as a stream or a fountain or something like that. That is our livelihood, okay? And you can draw other conclusions as to a man's fountain or stream of pleasure, okay? But that's really kind of like not a euphemism. This is what they're talking about, all right? Fountain of pleasure, stream of pleasure. Think about that, because it is connected to your health and to your livelihood and your well-being and your long life, as some may say. So think about that metaphor and how it's used, because King Solomon, the author of Proverbs, is going to be bringing that up as well. So holding on to that, we're going to make our way over to Proverbs, and we're going to see Solomon talk about wisdom. And he's also directing this to his son, right, another man. So it's also authored to a young man, but we can, of course, take our wisdom and knowledge for it as we choose. I'll be right back. I'll see you in just a second.